I have only been in trouble with the law one time in my life. I was 15 years old, and I had just had a season-ending ACL tear, and I wasn't going out partying all that much at this point in my life, so I was home on a Saturday night watching TV, and I got a call from one of my boys at like 10 o'clock at night, and he's like, yo, we were at a party, some guys from down the road broke in, stole all the booze, trashed the house, we found out who they are, and like, we need you to come out and like, we're gonna go scrap with these guys. So I was like, all right, like, I'll ride with my boys any day of the week. So obviously, I'm in a big immobilizer. I just got off crutches, so strapped it down really tight, limped to the end of my street. My friend's older brother, because none of us were able to drive at the time, picked me up down the road. We went to the local community center and just got into a fist fight. So the whole thing lasted about 5 minutes, got a couple shots in, cops pulled up, everyone ran. I wasn't going very far, so got put on the hood of a car. Luckily, I didn't get arrested, but I was sent home in the misdemeanor disturbing the peace. And that was my first real run-in with the law. Now, what does that story have to do with sales? Absolutely nothing. But I was called that day because I had built a reputation for, you know, being somewhat of a tough guy. I spent a lot of time in the weight room, especially since I had this ACL surgery. I was just benching and curls all day. And I'd also competed as an amateur boxer, so they knew I was willing to throw down, or at least knew how to throw a punch. And so that's why I got the call. So they were like, we need you to come in, throw a couple punches, and have our back. And that's pretty much what I'm doing here today. 2 days ago, Dan called me and was like, hey, we got an opening. You know how to sell some shit. And I start with this story because very unprepared to do this talk today. So a lot of times I like to have a buttoned up presentation or, you know, a lot, but my goal here today is come in, throw down, throw a couple punches, hopefully share some value, and do some Q&A at the end. Does that sound good? Yep. All right, cool. So, do we have a working clicker?
Down button.
Down.
Down button.
There we go. So again, I know a lot of you guys have met me or you know a little bit about my background, but who am I? I started 2012 just in my mom's house, signed a lease for a location that I should not have signed, and I started making homemade equipment, not necessarily because that's what I like to do, but it's because that's kind of all I had. So I made kettlebells out of concrete, Atlas stones. You know, it was pretty gritty, start to my fitness career. And then since then have grown. This is actually our vision photo, but we have 8 locations in 5 different states. That single location grew to about 1.2 million, peaking at about 500 clients. So we've sold a hell of a lot of memberships. In specific, we sold about 1,000 memberships in 2024 across those 8 locations. So what my goal is today is to talk about the exact system that we use to scale fitness sales across the country. And specifically, utilizing a CRM and computer system to do so. So that's kind of what I want to share with you today is what I call, not there yet. Again, not that well prepared today. But who is this for? Because you might be sitting here, I know a lot of you guys are either solo operations or employees. So if you're an employee, raise your hand. If you're an employee in one of these companies. So again, a lot of staff members. I've been in a lot of rooms. I've talked to a lot of people. I know that a lot of times when you hear the owner or very owner specific talk, a lot of times you kind of tune out, all right? But what I promise you is if you apply what we're gonna talk about today, even a little bit, in any position in the company, you will be able to take the steering wheel of your career and add value to your own bottom line. So it'll give you the ability to lead from any level, right? If you're a part-time, full-time, if you're a salesperson or just a coach, what we're gonna talk about is gonna give you an incredible amount of career capital. So you're gonna be able to go to the person that is in charge of your career and say, hey, here's a skill that I've got, here's the impact it has on the business, this is what I'm worth, right? So it allows you, like I said, take the steering wheel of your career and take it wherever you want. So I hope that that's incentive enough for you guys to pay attention. Now, if you're an owner, I hope to teach you guys that selling is serving. All right, I was one of the people that hated sales, right? I also hated being fucking broke, not having any clients. So I had to really learn what selling really meant And I'm not going to go into the nuances. Joe did a really good job of talking about like the actual sales conversation. We're going to talk more about the process of getting those conversations in front of you, but you can't serve the clients and help people if you can't sell. And lastly, it's going to give you the chance to elevate your team. So the owners in the room, raise your hand, right? If you have employees here or not, you have people in your business that are looking to you to lead them to the next phase of their career, to get more work, get more of an income, to be able to go home on Christmas and answer their aunt's question when they're like, are you still doing that gym thing? To be able to answer with pride and be like, fuck yeah, I got a real career. I have a salary, I got benefits. That is what, I hope you guys are excited to learn about. So as we get into this talk, really the ability to apply this system, like I said, you may be hearing this and be like, I only have one location, I don't have 8, I don't have a sales team. All you need is this CRM system. So I took out the slide, but the next slide I was gonna have that scene from Zoolander where they were all looking at the computer and like, right? That was me a couple years ago. Like I knew jack shit about software, CRM systems, right? Some of you guys may not even know what CRM stands for. Basically, just customer relationship management, right? And I use that term because there's a million systems out there. There's HubSpot, High Level. All the agencies have their own system like Mike's, which I think is a really good one if you're considering. But any ability to manage the relationships you have with your customers. You could do it in a notebook. You could do it in a Google spreadsheet. But these CRM tools are really great for really 3 things. Developing a pipeline, so managing the stages of the relationship that you have with your leads. So leads come in, you're talking to leads, they're coming in for a trial, and they're members. So your CRM just needs to do that. You need to be able to segment your list. So divide people based on, are they a lead, are they a member, are they a former member, right? That's the most basic version. And finally, you should be able to text, email, and phone call, right? Ideally, calls are involved. So whatever system you have, Go High Level, HubSpot, ActiveCampaign, they're all pretty much the same. But as long as they can do those 3 things, you guys are good. Now, employees in the room, how many of you guys have access or know how to use CRM systems? Sorry, I should say, how many of you guys don't know how to use them? Right, so again, this is where I want you guys to make sure you don't tune out because you're like, oh, I don't even have a login for that. Take what you learned here today, and if that is of interest or could be beneficial to your company, go home and want to be a part of that. All right, so don't be afraid to raise your hand for that opportunity. So before I really start diving into the weeds, and I will say I like to get very tactical. My goal is for you guys to leave with notebooks and note pages full of stuff. I will say a note on selling fitness. I have an immense amount of respect for anybody that is good at selling fitness. Selling fitness is really fucking hard. And I don't say that just because that probably adds value to what I'm going to share today, but the truth is, we're selling a product that people do not want to buy. They don't want to have to buy it. We're also selling a product that exposes people's deepest, darkest insecurities in their life, right? A lot of the people, especially with higher ticket sales, $300, $400, $500 a month, these people that have this disposable income are very successful in some area of their life. They are probably not all that successful in the gym, so it is going to be that much more of a light shining on all of their insecurities. It is incredibly difficult. Joe talked about the psychology of sales, to navigate that because they don't like to be vulnerable. And that's who we're dealing with, people that are CEOs or high power professionals, and it can be really fucking hard, especially as a trainer, if you don't have a rock solid level of confidence to do that. But that's part of what we're going to talk about today. And finally, selling fitness, you're selling something that just sucks. They don't like working out. It's clear, that's why they're here. They try doing it on their own. They don't like it. It also leaves them at risk for getting hurt, for being embarrassed, for being judged. And those factors, especially the psychological factors, the judgment and embarrassment, are probably, from a social psychology standpoint, the biggest drivers of human behavior. They will do anything to avoid social judgment or embarrassment. So, a note on that, give yourself a pat on the back if you're any good at selling fitness, because it's really fucking hard. So with that said, this is the system that I created that we use in my system or in my business, that we've used in my one location to grow to over $1 million in revenue. And as a company as a whole, we'll do $4 million across 8 locations and continuing to grow. Now, the coolest thing about this is a workflow, right? So this is a process that you can go through using a CRM step by step to make money fall out of the sky. And it's as simple as this. I have my 2 salespeople here. I'm gonna have Ian, stand up for me. Told you I was gonna embarrass him. Ian's never been in a fucking gym. He's been to gyms, but he's not a fitness guy. He manages 8 of our locations. He sells about, he books 35 appointments per week across 7 locations. Chris is more of a fitness guy. He's newer, he's a returning employee. But if you have any sort of doubt that like you can apply this in your business, or you don't know how to sell or lack a skill set, this is a process that anybody can step into, right? Just follow this workflow and you will fill your inbox with hungry leads and get them into the door. You guys following that? Again, if Ian can do it, now Ian's a stud, he's an absolute savage, doesn't know shit about fitness, right? 0 special skills are required to be good at this job, as long as you follow the process. Bleeding into this, you may be wondering, like, where do I even begin? It begins with what I've created and what I call the ring the register workflow. So this is simply just a process for when you sit down and say, I need to make money, this is the process you follow, all right? It's a combination of reactive communication, so you're answering you're clearing the inbox that people are reaching out about the gym, and the proactive work of filling your inbox. And this is where most people don't focus. They hope that they open their emails and they just have people wanting info about the gym. You have to create the conditions for that to happen. And that's a big part of the process. So it really is, when I teach this, sit down in front of your computer and you want to generate some business, clear the inbox, communicate effectively with the people in front of you, collect decisions from everybody in your pipeline, we'll talk about what that means, and tap your current client value network. And we'll talk about that later too. One is reactive, one is proactive. When you go through that, now your inbox is full. And we're gonna start back at the top and just keep doing that until you have 500 clients. All right? So step 1, sit down. How many of you guys have messages in your inbox right now? Probably, because you're sitting in this event, you're not replying to them, except for Ian and Chris, because they're good at their jobs. They're texting people under the table. So that's where you start, right? Those are the most urgent people that you want to reply to, are the people that are like actively reaching out. So again, starts right here. This is a photo of one of my CRM systems. So that's just where you start. So the most important thing is I'm going to focus very heavily on digital communication. I don't think it's talked about enough, but that's really where a lot of stuff is going. People aren't just walking into gyms and getting knee-to-knee sales like they used to. So I'm going to focus primarily on how to persuade and influence via text, emails, and phone calls. All right? So the hierarchy of communication, the understanding is there are certain mediums of communication that are more influential or persuasive than others. From the top to the bottom, text messages are the lowest form of influential communication. Then video messages. Next is phone calls and video calls. And the best way where you want to go is in-person meetings or trial sessions in your gym. All right? And I have these arrows, if you guys can read it. People want, because of these insecurities, because of their lack of wanting to be vulnerable, they want to go towards text messages, right? They don't like jumping on calls all the time. A lot of times they're not ready to show up to the gym. At least the clients that we work with, if you have that over 40 fat loss market. Where we need to go is pushing them down. So you're always gonna have, I call it like verbal judo, right? You're always gonna be in this like state of pushing people and pulling them to where you want them to go, even if they're resisting it. All right, so you wanna get them in the gym, they wanna stay safe behind their phone. All right, so how do you do that? well, it's just stats. 90% of lead follow-up happens via SMS. I'll be honest, I made that statistic up. It's very close to others. I don't know if that has ever been, the study's ever been done, but it sounds about right. And it's about where these guys live and where we live, and it aligns with a lot of other studies with lead follow-up stuff that is happening. So you guys probably know this, but I just want to make a point to say it. Why is text messaging so ineffective? All right, anybody want to shout out? Any ideas?
It's impersonal.
Impersonal?
You're not able to find out who the person is.
It's true. Tone, so that's the first one I have here. All right, there's no body language, tone, tempo. The next, these are all right answers, by the way. There's no control, and I think this is the most important one. You send a text out, you just gotta hope that they're gonna reply, right? You don't know what they're doing on the other end of the phone. They could be driving, they could be with their kids. So you lose all control when you're exchanging communication via text message. And then finally, it's saturated, right? Like emails used to be ineffective, text messages, now that the election's over, it's a little bit better, but people just get blown up all day, every day. If you guys all pulled your phones out, I guarantee you probably have a text message in there. So while text message is the most readily available and it's the lowest friction, it's the least influential. So you want to be able to move them down that hierarchy of communication. So where I really want to start with this clear the inbox are just the rules of communication via text message and email. I mean, primarily text message here, that makes it more persuasive and more effective for sales. All right. So these are the rules that I have when we audit, like when I review kind of what my salespeople are doing, what our coaches are doing. These are the rules that are like, I'll slap you on the wrist or, get rid of you if you can't follow these rules. So there's really three things. The first one is keep it short. All right. So there's a lot of studies that show 150 to 200 words are like the max that you should be, characters. 200 characters are about the length of a text message that you want to be sending people. People are busy, right? And we get into our heads a lot of time when somebody doesn't reply, but think about a lead that opts in at midnight, at 8 a.m., you start texting them, they're probably like running around with their kids, getting in the car, they're driving to work, they got shit going on. So if they don't reply, it's not disinterest, they're just busy. So you want to keep it as short as possible because people will always associate cognitive load or cognitive processing with quality. So if you make things as easy to understand as possible and as short as possible, they will associate that with like increased knowledge, right? Or authority. So making sure you're not being too wordy. So again, like never send more than 200 characters in a text. Now the reason for this, so I kind of translated this from the marketing world. Have you guys ever heard the term above the fold? So in old school marketing and newspapers, when you get a newspaper, it's folded up, right? If you had an article or a headline in the newspaper, you needed it to be above the fold if you wanted it to get attention. When you unfold it, if it's below that fold, it's going to get a lot less attention. So how does that look via text message? On the left is way too much information, right? This is a mock setup that I had Chris do for me. But like, this is where a lot of people live, on the left. They're like, I'm short on time. I'm going to send you everything that I have about this program. So we do a 21-day jumpstart. So somebody's like, hey, tell me about your gym. Here's everything you need to know. Do you want to buy it? Right? But when they go to reply, it becomes very difficult for them to process that when they have to scroll, when they have to sit and fucking read all of that. So that's why I say like 200 messages 200 characters, that same reply should be boiled down to just the basic information and move them to the next steps, right? So keep it very, very short, and your whole goal is to move them to the next strength of communication. Does that make sense? So again, this is like the way we would reply is like, here's one drip of information. Does that sound good? Yes, let's get you on a call. So information overload is no good. And the last one, never answer a question that wasn't asked. This is the biggest culprit that I see when I see people doing this, and even on our own team. We want to give more information than they really asked for, but you want to be very careful of saying the wrong thing because, again, somebody said it here, like, you can't get to know somebody. You don't know what they actually want. So be very careful, keep it a little bit tight to the vest, because if you say, oh, we have hour sessions, and they're like, oh shit, I wanted 45-minute sessions, right? They didn't even ask, but you told them, and now they're not interested. So again, this is an example of the way this happens. Again, this happens in person, this happens on the phone, and digitally. You know, somebody says, tell me about your program. You say, yeah, we help people over 40 lose fat with personal training. Workouts are 60 minutes. We focus on functional movement combined with conditioning. We bill bi-weekly, cost range from 35 to 55 an hour. You know, do you want to hop on a call? They didn't ask any of that shit. All they asked, tell me about your program. It should just be this. And this bleeds into a future part of this, but your text communication needs to be short and incredibly simple. Right? Let them participate in the conversation. Right? Avoid information overload as much as possible. So again, the final thing, the goal is to move them to the next medium of communication. All right? So the two rules, those are 2 rules of keeping it short. Yes?
I know nobody's asked a question in the middle. So with the text messages, you go through like if you like maybe a little bit of like a workflow if someone's not answering anything, is it worth it to like give them little, you know, if you got a Facebook lead that's never answered any messages, is it worth it to give them a little bit of like, hey, you know, we do first, you know, give them little tips? I just want someone to fucking answer.
Yes.
Instead of just, hey, when can you call? Hey, are you free? Hey, when can I call you?
Yes.
I'm trying to think of more stuff to like get a fucking response.
So I'll touch on it a little bit later,
Okay.
but hold on to it. I'll do some questions at the end, because again, I have no fucking clue how long this is going to take. So this could take 2 hours. This could take 32 minutes. So number 2, with clearing the inbox, keep it human. All right, people are expecting robots. People at this point, you know, Mike Lisi's selling an AI chatbot. That's where the whole fucking world is going. All right, so people are expecting robots. Don't be a robot. Be personable. And I'll tell you a story. So I have a really good friend that is like a national sales manager for a tech company, and he told me a story that he started working for a new boss, and on the first day he took him out to lunch. They sat at a bar, and he basically said, like, don't be a fucking idiot. He's like, don't be a robot. He's like, if you ever talk to a client in a way that you wouldn't talk to me right now sitting at a bar, he's like, I will fire you on the spot. And he calls it the normal human being approach. He's like, just NHBA. Just be a normal ass human being. Right? Text your prospects the same way you would text your friends or family. Right? No like dorky, that's the normal human being approach. That's the rule. Don't like address every single text message. Like, hey Tony, thanks for reaching out. Can I help you with something? Great, Tony. Like, nobody talks like that. Be a normal human being. Right? Don't sign off every single text message like your friends at Gauge Strength Training. Just talk. Right? Again, the less you send, the better typically, but just be a normal ass human being. And then, so to your point, guy in the back, I can't remember your name, be fun. Right? If you're not fun, pretend to be fun. Ask ChatGPT how to be fun and send messages. But like, these are 2 examples. So this was a lead that was like very resistant to getting on a call. They weren't really answering. This lady just kept peppering us with questions. And so Chris sent a video message that was like, hey, it's a lot of information. I just want to make sure you get it all with the right context, with the right tone and body language. Here it is. And then she booked an appointment, and I think she signed up. Right? If we never got her out of that like flow of just resisting text messaging with a video message, next form of communication, we might not have gotten her. This is a meme that I send out. I dressed up a fake skeleton at the gym with one of our shirts that we send. If somebody's very unresponsive, we'll send that out and usually get like some replies. All right. And we'll talk about like the exact tone that we send it in, but I call it pushing to no. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but just have some fun. Like, again, if that's your brand voice, if you have like an ultra professional buttoned up brand voice, I'll be honest, you probably wouldn't be in this room. But if you guys have somewhat of a grittier, more personable approach with your brand, then have fun with it. So that's the summary there. And the last one, you probably noticed a lot of these, the examples that I've shown, all have a question at the end. So really, my rule is always keep the conversation moving via text. You have to give them something to latch onto to keep it going, or else you're asking them to come up with the next move. All right, so I've studied lots of different language tactics and communication styles, one of which is called motivational interviewing. Have you guys ever heard of that? So it's used in a lot of like psychotherapy and counseling services. But one of the big things is like, they call elicit, provide, elicit. And a lot of counselors are trained on this. And it's a way to verbally avoid telling people what to do, because people are very resistant to being told what to do or feel like they're forced into something. And it helps avoid cognitive overload. So elicit, provide, elicit. So the word elicit means to draw something out of somebody. So eliciting a response, eliciting a permission for something. Provide is the information you want to provide. And then elicit, in this context, means to check for clarification. If you guys can nail this communication style in person, like verbally, it's a game changer. All right, and again, I want to keep this primarily in text messaging, just as effective via text message or email. All right, so elicit, I'm going to give you an example, but eliciting, hey, do you mind if I share some information? You're eliciting permission to give information. You're providing information in small, manageable bits, and then you're eliciting. Does that make sense? All right, if you can nail that language pattern, it's incredibly powerful. So, example is, hey, so are you sure you're interested in personal training and not a regular gym? You're eliciting them to say yes, right? And you say, all right, great. We specialize in personal training for people over 40 that want to lose fat. Is that what you're looking for? They say yes. And now you're in the EPE flow, right? Awesome. We also do nutrition coaching and high accountability. Does that sound like what you're looking for? Yes. Now, the power in this is in getting them nodding their head yes, right? So this is what it looks like digitally. You just heard it verbally. But digitally, hey, can you tell me your program? Yeah. Are you sure you want personal training and not a regular gym? Yes. Drip of information? Yes. And you do that enough times, and they're just sitting there like nodding their head until eventually you're like, do you want to come in? They're like, yes, I do want to come in, right? So this is I was trained in hypnosis. This is what they call a yes set. And it's a really powerful, tactic for influence that's just as effective via text message. All right, does that make sense? You guys remember that guy? Next is stop telling people stuff. In the same wheelhouse as stop answering a question that wasn't asked, stop making statements. This is very important. And I'll explain why, but also understand the power of vague language. So I told you I was trained in hypnosis. You're all being hypnotized right now, actually. A really important part of hypnotherapy is using vague language. And it's because when you use vague language, so you keep things a little more broad than specific, it allows people to insert themselves into the environment. So if I'm going to give you some examples, I think. I'll relate this to sales first. So the Sandler selling system is one of my favorite sales systems. The guy, David Sandler, I think, who's back in the 70s, I think was 50 years ahead of his time when it comes to sales psychology. He tells a story that his daughter was in school. She painted a picture of a beach scene in like 3rd grade, and teacher comes over. She's like, wow, that's really amazing. And he's like, but it would be a little bit better with this little seagull. And he painted a seagull in her picture. And she freaked out. She like tore up the paper, ran out the room crying, went to the principal, and the principal's like calming her down. And he's like, well, what's wrong? Why are you crying? And she said, I didn't have seagulls in my picture. And that's what we do when we make statements. We put something in somebody's mental image that they didn't have, and that's gonna lead to cognitive friction. So you're like, nah, I don't know about that. That's not what I was picturing. Everybody has, let me know if I lose you guys. Everybody has a mental image of what they're looking for. It could be completely false. It could be based on the, Jane Fonda tapes where, You learned horrible information about what's effective for female, fitness, but that's what they've got. And if you tell them something that doesn't align with that image, they're gonna be like, nah, I don't think that's what I need. So avoid that at all costs. So not only don't answer the question that's not asked, avoid making it too specific with your answer. And I'll give you examples of this. You guys following that? So don't put seagulls in the prospect's picture. So somebody says, what are the workouts like? Right? Oh, we offer functional fitness workouts using free weights. They're typically an hour long and are designed to help you burn fat. Right? How many statements, just hold up a number, how many statements are in this sentence? How many seagulls are in this picture? There's 4. Functional fitness, they're like, oh, I thought I needed cardio. Right? They don't fucking know what that means, typically. Free weights. Like, oh, I thought my doctor said that free weights were dangerous. I shouldn't do kettlebells. Hour long, they're like, I read an article last year that said we should only do 30-minute workouts. And burn fat, they're like, oh, I want to lose weight. Right? Don't speak a language that's going to not be congruent with what they have in their head. And we don't know what's in their head because we're not mind readers. So you want to keep it very vague. So the answer would look more like this. We design your training to help you meet your goals. What are you hoping to find? So this is an example of how you can not only keep the conversation moving, but avoid very specific statements. There's nothing in here that would be a seagull in their painting. Does that make sense? Right? You're not even answering the question. Yes?
Being subversive?
I don't know what that word means. Subversive.
This is like chess right now. I get what you're saying.
All right. So now, are you saying, like, are you being avoidant?
In a sense, yeah.
So again, there is an art and a science behind like doing it without being salesy and like you're avoiding the question. There is nothing about this question that is a lie or misleading, right? And again, if somebody really drills you, it's probably a bad prospect. You just tell them anyway. Yes.
So I was watching a video a couple of weeks ago about, I don't remember his name, but he was talking about how you're always bringing the question back to the client. Like, you're never asking them questions. Like, you're never keeping the conversation for you. Like, you're always asking the question back to them in order to answer their own questions. Is that
Yes.
kind of like what we're doing?
Yes. Yeah, it's again, the communication style is from motivational interviewing. You're getting them to sell themselves by telling you what they need. And the thing with asking questions, like, always be very, very curious why they want to know what the workouts are like, right? In Sandler, they say prospects are suspects. Like, always be very suspicious and curious about, like, why do you want to know? Like, what are you looking for? And again, another example here. How many statements or points of disagreement exist here? What type of equipment is there? Again, functional fitness, kettlebells, dumbbells. There's a lot. So it doesn't matter, right? All they care about is that you can solve their problem. Some of the best sales conversations I've had, I never even said what we do. They just know, they're like, oh, you can make me lose weight? Cool, sign me up. Like, okay, cool. Right? So again, vague language. The more I give specifics and like nerd out on like, oh, we've got a belt squat machine, we've got this. If that's not in their picture, in their beach scene, they're gonna be like, ooh, that looks dangerous. I never heard of that. It's gonna be cognitive friction. So, hey, we've got everything you typically see in a gym designed to help you lose fat, whatever the goal is. Are you looking for something in particular? Right, so just be very curious, be very vague with your responses. And again, it comes from the world of hypnotherapy. It allows people to insert themselves into the picture. And then finally, this one gets me all the time. When people ask for the schedule, be very careful when you deliver the schedule, because we have no idea what they're looking for. And again, it could be delivered the wrong way, feel subversive, or like you're trying to drag them along. But truth is, if we want to serve these people and we really want to help them, we have to help them get out of their own way sometimes. So when somebody says, like, tell me the schedule, like, oh, we have 5:30, 6:30, whatever. I'll give you a very specific example of this. So I got on a call with a lady this last year, and she was like, right away, she's like, just tell me the schedule. I have a really crazy schedule. I can only do 5 a.m. for 30 minutes. And I was like, is that the only time you can do? And she was like, well, I could do 4:30 on Wednesdays and Fridays. I was like, oh, okay. Is that it? And she was like, well, Tuesdays after 5:30. I was like, all right, well, you said early mornings? She's like, yeah, early mornings. I was like, could you do 5:30? And she was like, how long? And I was like, it's an hour, but we could probably get you out of here in like 50 minutes. She's like, yeah, I could probably do that. So she came in really hot, insecure, afraid of being vulnerable, had sales resistance, told me she could only do 5 a.m. for 30 minutes. And just because I didn't tell her the schedule, because if I told her the schedule, she would have been out. If I was like, oh, we have 5:30, they're on hour, like, she would have been out. But just those 2 extra questions gave me, like, she had like 8 other times that she could do. And she ended up coming in and signing up. So again, that's just the power of like, be very curious, avoid making blanket statements, because that gives them something to disagree with. So again, digitally, hey, we have sessions at all times of the day. In a perfect world, what would you be looking for? And there's a little bit of hypnotic effect of that in a perfect world statement. That's one of my favorites. So again, she'll tell you, and then you can try to insert the schedule into what her picture is. Does that make sense? So those are the 3 on clear the inbox. So that's your first step. Clear the inbox. Were you raising your hand? Okay. So again, you're sitting down to follow up with leads. That's the way you want to approach these from a digital communication style, right? And obviously trying to get them to move to a phone or an in-person meeting. It's very hard to do that if you can't nail that digital body language, I should say. So number 2, collecting decisions. So our jobs are to push people to make decisions. This is where a lot of salespeople or people that are trying to sell struggle, because we are afraid of rejection, because it's probably what we like fitness, because we truly get to help people and change lives. It took a lot of training for me to be not afraid of hearing no, but I fucking love no. Like if I know that I'm gonna sell 1 membership for every 10 clients, I wanna get 9 no's as fast as possible, because the 1 yes is on the other side of 9 no's. And you can't get there if you don't collect the no's. So again, AKA, this is pipeline management and organization. Mike talked about this yesterday. The thing that holds a lot of people back is organization and like really maintaining the hygiene of your sales pipeline. All right, if it gets too bogged down with people that haven't replied, people that told you no, but you didn't remove them, it adds up very, very fast. Ian's got he's got like 4,000 people in his pipeline right now that like, you have to maintain that cleanliness or else it becomes completely unmanageable and you end up staring and you never take action, right? But he manages it because he's a freak of nature, but so your sales pipeline. So this is our digital lead like workflow. So this is what our pipeline looks like. Yours is gonna be slightly different. These are the percentages at every single like stage of the pipeline. So for every 100 leads, we convert about 14% of digital, I say Facebook leads. Referrals and web leads are much higher. I think referrals are like 38 for every 100. Website is like 25. But just one example here. Your job is to collect, your job is to collect a decision from everybody in between these numbers. Does that make sense? Where people get stuck is when people, like hot lead is somebody that replies, they're just leaving things up in the air. It's like, hey, are you interested? And they don't get back. Your job is to push them to make a decision, all right? So to answer your question a little bit is like, what's the cadence of reach out or like the touch points? There's a lot of different answers to that, but the big thing is like, you're not afraid to push them to no. So the goal here is go in with your objective in mind. So for us, we basically have 3 ways people can make decisions with us. We can disqualify them, which I love. It's like, hey, let's get to that point as fast as possible. That you either can't afford it, you're not a good culture fit, or you just don't need us. Right? We're gonna charge $400 a month. If you don't need it, you don't need it. So we wanna disqualify as many people as we can. They can they can schedule a visit. So for us, it's like a tour of the gym. If they're not ready to do a workout, it's a trial session, or we can just close them on the phone, which happens a lot too. And that's just, we have a good offer, we get the credit card information right away. And the last one, this is where most things get left up in the air. It's like, yeah, reach out to me tomorrow, or like send me some info and I'll get back to you. That's where people like leave things up in the air. So you have to push them to a decision and control the entire frame. So in this context, I didn't give a specific on that, but if somebody's like, yeah, just send me some info, I'll get back to you, or I'm gonna go talk to my husband and see what he says, it's very easy to just be like, okay, cool. But then you're standing there with your hands in your pockets, like hoping that your inbox fills up. My job is to get the inbox full. And you do that by redirecting and saying like, hey, it totally makes sense. I'll be honest, I have a lot of people to follow up with. I wanna make sure you don't slip through the cracks. Do you mind if I don't hear from you by tomorrow at 3 p.m.? I can put you on my calendar to reach out. 99.9% of the time, they will say yes. And now you are in control, right? And you are gonna say, this is the time that I'm gonna ask you to make a decision, right? And that eliminates this is the killer for your pipeline getting bogged down. Just saying like, hey, I want to make sure you don't slip through the cracks. Do you mind if I follow up at 3 p.m. tomorrow? Put it into your calendar, and now a decision is to be made. Make sense? So the biggest thing is, the decision is there is a scheduled follow-up time on a calendar. And tomorrow is not a time. It's got to be this day and this time, and they agree to it. So summarize, nothing is left up in the air. And so you're in the pipeline now, all right? How do you prioritize your time? The goal is you want to prioritize your time in order of the likelihood of closing. So I showed you my pipeline. We have leads, hot leads, trials booked, trials that showed, like active trials, and active members. So leads, I'll be honest, is not a great place, aside from your initial reach out, it's not a great place to spend all of your time. The hot leads are a better place to start. So these are the people that have replied, that have raised their hand with some sort of, yeah, tell me more. And even if they don't reply, that's where you want to hammer. So if you have a hot leads list, like I would spend most of my time there. So they've expressed interest, they've responded to your follow-ups, then you go to the leads. Because the leads could be like, Facebook auto-populates people's info. A lot of times we get a lot of like, go fuck yourself, I never opted in. And like, I don't know how I got your email, but you did. Or they were like drunk scrolling in the middle of the night. So these ones are a lot less interested a lot of the time. So you need to do the follow-up. This is gonna be a higher priority. And then finally, active trials. So we do a mix of like single session or like longer term, like paid trials. But then you wanna just be checking in on people and asking if they're ready to convert, a lot of times with an offer. Make sense? So again, that's kind of how I would prioritize my time. This section of collecting decisions, I've cleared the inbox. Now I go to my hot leads, I follow up with every single hot lead that needs a follow-up. Then I go to my leads, I do all the leads that need follow-ups, then I'm checking in on trials. And again, go into all of these conversations with your objective in mind. So be very specific and say, hey, did you still want to come in for a personal training session, or did you still want to come in for, to learn about our Jumpstart? So just have those objectives. I'll be honest, a lot of people go in blind and they're just like, I got to do something. Go in with one of those three. Hey, we're either going to schedule a time to collect a decision, you're going to come in for one of our options, or just tell me no. And that's what's called pushing to no. It's like, hey, can you just tell me if this isn't a good fit so I can pull you off my list? Right? That's a scarcity thing. That's a really powerful kind of psychological thing too. And speak with confidence. Like avoid all of the softeners in a lot of your follow-ups, like just checking in, following up. I think I added it. No. The one that makes me want to like run my head through a wall is let me know if you have questions. Right? And I want to break this down for you. So the term let me know, you have just lost all control. You just made a psychological agreement that you have to take the next step. Say, hey, let me know. Now when you go to follow up, you're an asshole because you just made an unwritten contract to say that, hey, I'll be here, you can follow up next. Does that make sense? So always avoid that let me know and do everything you can to control the frame of conversation. And now let me know if you have questions. There is no way in the world they don't have questions. So it's not if, it's let me know what questions you have. Because especially in a text exchange, there's no possible way they could not have any questions. So don't presuppose that they might not. So a different answer, if like you send some information and they don't answer, instead of saying, let me know if you have questions, say, hey, I know you have a lot of questions. Tomorrow at 3 p.m., would you be open to a phone call and I can like run you through all of them? Right? Now you are in control. You're not, making this contractual thing of like, I'll just stay here till you reach out. But there's a lot of power in like speaking with that level of confidence. And last one is like, always have a reason for reaching out. So in the marketing world, I did a podcast on this. The word because is really powerful, right? The word because gets response rates to go from like 20 to 70%. Just giving people a reason, like, hey, I'm reaching out because I haven't heard from you a few days and I'm sure you have questions about the gym. Do you have time for a call? Right? So give them a reason. Always use that word because in your reach outs. And I've said it here, like, push them to no. If you've got stagnant people in your pipeline, don't stop reaching out, but reach out with the intention of being like, hey, can you just fucking tell me if I should go fuck myself? Because I just want to get you out of my system. Like, push them to tell you no. More often than not, you'll get somebody like, oh my God, no, I'm so sorry. I've just been really busy. I am interested. Like, awesome. I have time tomorrow at 3 p.m. Do you mind if we get on a call? Right? And this is the only way, unless you are removing leads from your pipeline that have gone completely cold, which I don't like doing, this is the only way that you should be pulling people out, is a scheduled visit, they told you no, or a scheduled follow-up, all right? And again, like you could even, have some fun with it. Like, listen, my boss is gonna fire me if I don't get you to tell me if you're interested or not. Like, can you just tell me so I can stop reaching out to him or stop reaching out to you? Have some fun with it. So that is your, what did I call it? Collecting decisions. So again, managing your pipeline. That's the first step to filling your inbox. The last stage of this ring the register workflow is your current client value network, right? How many of you guys have clients that you're actively working with? Right? Now it's time to go to them and start, shaking their pockets empty. But really, I'll keep it really simple. Like, there's 3 things that you can tap your current client value network for. There's upselling, cross-selling, and referrals. Upselling and cross-selling are very similar, but I'll give you examples. So cross-selling is something like supplements to speed up their results, apparel, if there's any margins on apparel, and a complementary service. So if somebody does training, selling them on nutrition. And upselling is just going to be a higher priced or a bigger package of what they're currently doing. So they're training. For us, we do large group in one gym. So large group to small group to one-on-one, which we don't really do a lot, or just more frequency. All right? And you identify these people by who is the furthest from their ideal self. Right? The value in what you offer lives in the gap between where they are now and where they have stated they want to be. So there's a really good book, Gap Selling, that it's all based on this topic. This is everything about the conversations that you're having, right? Getting them to admit where they're at, how hard it's going to be to get where they want to go, and finding the value in that. The further away you can make that frame, the more valuable it's going to be. So for example, it's just an illustration of what I just said. But for example, if somebody is 250 pounds and they have stated that their goal is to be 200 pounds, what can you sell them to close that gap? Would they benefit? Like, legitimately, and this isn't like a sleazy, salesy, like trying to make a joke, shake their pockets empty, but legitimately, what do they need? I'll be honest, we have a lot of clients in my gym that are just simply not doing what they should be doing to reach their goals. And I talk to my coaches about this. I'm like, because they're afraid to have upsell conversations. They're afraid to like feel salesy. But I'm like, this lady's 45. She wants to lose 60 pounds. She's showing up fucking 2 days a week. If you, as a coach, need to lose 60 pounds, how many days a week are you training? 5, 6? You're fucking dialed in. So why would we be afraid to sell somebody what is actually going to get them where they want to go? We're assholes if we don't. So if this person, if you go through your client list, your current value network, and you're like, man, this guy's 50 pounds away, is there a service or a product that can get him closer? Because people are willing to pay if it's going to close that gap. So you identify this. How many of you guys have in-body scans in your gyms? So we use an in-body. So there's a digital platform for the in-body. It gives me a top 50 list of the fattest clients, the people that have gained fat and not lost fat, the people that have not gained muscle, right? I would tap that list. And I would pull that list of my top 50 fattest clients, or I should say the clients that have seen the worst results. And I would say, hey, I was just reviewing your in-body. I know you got a goal to lose 50 pounds. I was wondering if you wanted to do, this package, because I'll be honest, 2 days a week of large group isn't cutting it. Let's get you on a better plan. Like, people are willing to buy when they're in pain. So again, your job is to find ways to identify those people. And one of the things that, again, is hard at scale, but knowing what all of your clients' goals are. Because this is completely worthless if you don't actually know what they want. So when you know what they want and you have a way to measure where they're at, you now have a gap that you can find ways like, all right, would they benefit from more protein? Would they benefit from a greens powder or creatine? Like, that's where the gap is. And you do that by segmenting your list with active members and then doing personal reach outs based on that in your CRM system. Then next, referrals, right? Every single client that you have has a current value network that they go home to every day that could probably benefit from what you do. So I made this, I hung it up in my staff office till somebody took it down for a while, but every, for example, 40-year-old mom or dad has a friend group, right? Is there a bring a friend workout, special workout group for, their neighborhood? A lot of these neighborhoods these days have like Facebook groups and email lists of their own. It's kind of wacky. Can you ask them to tag their friends in a post? Do they work nearby? Can you set up a joint venture or a special workout for their office? Is there a special offer you could send? Are they involved in church? Same thing. These mom Facebook groups are wild. But if you guys have the privilege of getting let into a mom's Facebook group, buckle up. But a lot of people are asking about getting in shape, new gyms, wanted to look better, feel better, whatever. So if you can get somebody to infiltrate these groups, it's a good referral network. Spouse, is their husband out of shape? Is their wife out of shape? Can you get them to come in? Do they have kids? Do the kids play sports? Do the kids have coaches? Parent-teacher organizations, right? Is there something there? Booster clubs. And then finally, again, just looking at the client and being like, what do they need that I could possibly sell them? So this is the last stage of the proactive Ring the Register workflow, where you clear the inbox, you go to your pipeline, you do actions that hopefully generate action in your inbox, and then you go to your current client and you try to create the conditions for them to be interested as well. And this is like start to finish. When I onboarded Chris recently, I've onboarded people, I'm like, your day consists of you open your computer, you reply to all the leads, you go to the pipeline, you hit hot leads, you go to the leads, you go to the active memberships, and then you pull up our client list and you see who needs something that we can sell. And then you start over, because now your inbox is full again. And if you have a dedicated person, that's all they do. If it's you have to time block this. Like, you have to find an opening, like a 2-hour gap every single day that you can do the reactive and proactive activities that are gonna just constantly fill your inbox with interest, all right? And I say time blocking, like a 2-hour block is really what it takes to massively grow your business. So, and the last thing here with referrals is just be an antenna. Like, if you're talking to clients and they mention work, school, community, neighborhood, where they live, just toss it out there. We're like, oh, hey, you want to do like a group workout, or do you think we could get on your email list? Just be a constant attention or antenna up to pick up like who could we get from that client value network in here. So this is it. This is a summary. If anybody didn't take a picture or anything, but really I want to end with one thing. So if this works. So I took this photo a couple years ago. These are two houses that were like 2 houses down from me. They were right next door to each other. One was like bright fire engine red. The other was bright baby bird blue, bluebird blue. I drove by these houses for 10 years and I never saw them. Literally, like, I could see them from my house today, but for 10 years I drove right by these houses and never once saw them. And the reason is because we all have something in our brains called the reticular activating system. And it's the filter that filters out what information our eyeballs process that brings to conscious awareness. We are processing more information than ever before. Like, our brains are not evolved enough to handle what we're doing. So this RAS system filters out anything it deems not necessary for survival or not worthy of bringing to conscious awareness. For some reason, the second I saw these houses, I was like, holy shit, when did that happen? And my neighbors were like, you serious? Like, they've always been like that. These are right next door to each other. Now I can't miss them. They were right in front of me every single day, twice a day for 10 years. And I never physically, consciously saw it. So the power in what we're talking about today is less in just doing stuff, but it is more in becoming aware of what exists in front of you every single day. Your client value network, the number of clients that have spouses that should be in the gym, the number of clients that should be coming more often, the number of clients that should be buying supplements because it will genuinely help them reach their goal faster. So that's what I got for you. What questions you got? What time is it? Like 3 p.m.? What do you got?
So as you know, we're over majority women, men. What tips do you have on the phone call to take the temperature down when you post women only gym, women, random guys calling me, and I don't know what's going on, and just make sure they know we're not the YouTube people. Our gym is very, very low pressure. So what tips do you have on the phone to make the women feel comfortable knowing that a guy's calling them, even though the gym is majority women, classes? So
the defensiveness of a woman, a female, being like, I thought this was a women's only gym?
Yeah, and I'm a guy on the phone.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah, and you got a very deep voice too. You can't even fake it. So one of my favorite thought leaders to follow is a guy named Chase Hughes. And he was like a CIA operatives training guy. He does a lot with hypnosis and communication. And he's got a thing, if you have a flaw, you should feature it. So I would like make a point to open the call with like, hey, obviously it's probably weird hearing a guy sell this. Like, we primarily work with women. I just want to make sure you're okay with talking to a guy about this. Like, if you have something, never let somebody accidentally stumble upon a bad experience. Like, if you think they're going to be surprised to hear a male, like maybe you do a pre-call, like you send a photo, like when your plumber comes to the house and it's like some guy's headshot, like send a photo of Lavelle and be like, hey, I'm the guy that's going to call you, like, LOL, we do train only women. It's not going to be just me and you, something along those lines. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I'm staying sure.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like being vague, I guess, is that more so via text, or is that as well, like if you're on the call?
On the call too.
On the call as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, like, again, be very curious why people are asking questions. A lot of questions are like red herrings. They don't really want the answer. They're just looking for something to disagree with. So like I said, people are very insecure. People are very scared to come to a gym, and a lot of times they're looking for a reason not to sign up. So when they ask that question, be very curious and be very careful to like answer with too many specifics, because then they have a reason to be like, oh, see, I needed a 5:30 a.m., but it was 5:45, so it doesn't work for me. So just getting into the habit of being very curious in those conversations. Yeah, it happens in person, phone, all the time.
Yeah. Can I add like an additional? I
Yeah.
feel like for me, I'm sure a lot of the coaches in here too, one of like, I guess things that I get is people are like, that do actually buy, is they enjoy the passion that I have. They're like, yo, I could hear the excitement in your voice and everything like that. So I guess with knowing that, how would you kind of tie those two together?
I would not be as excited.
Okay.
And I'd say that from like I need to think more on this question because I don't want to sound like a dick, but one of the worst things you can do in sales is make it seem like it's going to be too easy for people. So I was the same way for a long time. And when I would get on a call and people were like, yeah, I really want to lose weight. I'm like, oh, sweet. Like we do this all the time. Like we're going to get you doing this and this. And I was so excited. Not only does it set a very unrealistic expectation, like, because it's fucking not easy at all, right? There's a psychology. So the coach that I've worked with for a long time, there's this, you want to be in kind of a retreating frame. You want them to come to you. The more like energetically assertive you're being, the more resistant they're going to be, like retreating. So you want to kind of find a way to share your excitement, but be very careful not to be like energetically too forward because that's going to put them on their back foot. Does it make sense? I'm happy to talk to you more about this too, because it's a very tough question. Yeah, Tony?
When you're talking about vagueness, obviously one of the first questions we always get is, we heard you're expensive, how much are you?
Yeah. So when you have somebody fire that at you like right out of the gate, it's tough. Like a lot of times they're just, again, looking for a reason not to sign up. A lot of times what I'll do, and this is a way to, you can do this via text message or in person, I'll kind of just be like, oh, shit. I wouldn't say shit, but be like, oh, man, can I be honest? Like, I'm going to tell you the price. If this knocks you off your chair and like you can't believe it, just hang with me for 1 minute because maybe I can at least share another place that you could go to, right? It's kind of that retreating, like, whoa, like, oh shit, if you're coming out of the gate with that, like, I'm going to blow you away right now, and I want to make sure that you're prepared to hear this. You're not only like building their mental, they're like, oh shit, I'm going to hear this massive number. So in their head, they're like, yeah, it's going to be like $1,000 a month. And when you say 300, then they're like, oh, that's not what I was expecting. So again, there's kind of like a playfulness in that communication too. And you got to find your own kind of voice in it. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but again, right out of the gate, when people ask that, it can be jarring for a coach or a salesperson. They're just like, oh, it's $50 an hour, right? With zero context, with zero anything else. So that's why I like to build that buffer where I'm like, oh, like, listen, I'm going to tell you, I just want to let you know, it's probably going to knock you off your chair. If this is completely outrageous, just hang with me for 1 minute because there's other gyms that maybe I can refer you to. I just want to make sure you get the right, get the solutions you're looking for. Does that sound fair? And then you tell them they're anticipating a massive number, and then you do your price thing, and then hopefully they don't run away. Yes?
In conversation, how do you get past the hesitancy of people to share their true goal? So like maybe they don't want to admit that they want to lose weight. Like what questions do you ask to kind of lead them and peel back the layers of what they really want?
It's always different, but I just try to be very specific. So like whatever they say, I want to lose weight, I just be like, well, what is that? Like, what does lose weight mean? Sometimes we'll be like, yeah, I took a shit this morning and like I lost some weight. Or like you could sit in a sauna for an hour and lose weight. Like, do you have a specific goal? But really just try to get really granular with it.
Okay, so the people that are like, well, I want to just move more, or like, I don't really have a goal, I just want to move more. Like, what would you say to somebody like that?
Yeah, I would say like, what is that going to do for you
Yeah.
in that kind of context? Like, what are you hoping that's going to do for you? And a lot of times unless somebody's very resistant, which I don't see a ton of that level of resistance to goals. But yeah, just try to get more specific.
So with the Seagulls thing, if they do say something like, I'm looking for strength training, will you, be hesitant to agree with them and be like, oh, we have strength training? Because you still don't want to, have any Seagulls there.
So no, the answer is I would not just say yes. So a big thing in motivational interviewing is like avoid very like frank statements or concrete statements. So you would say like, oh, you're looking for strength training. And I would say like, we may be able to help you. Do you mind if I share how our program works and then you can tell me if it's a good fit? So that word, like, we may be able to, is very disarming for people. Because the second you start saying, like, oh, we do that, that's the sales resistance that's going to come.
You also have no idea what their definition of strength training is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll take one more. Dan's going to hook me off the stage.
Oh, that's a good time.
Gnome.
Yes. So I know you talked about like text and everything. I know you use anomalies, so you can use voice notes now. It's a little bit different than having like a video. But what are your thoughts on that? And then also sending like links with a video, let's say like a testimonial or something like that. Again, when they're in your pipeline, just trying different angles. Have you guys had success with that?
Yeah, we never built a system around voice notes, but it's definitely better than text. It can be a little weird for people. Like, I'm a big fan of voice notes, but like personally, but I would try it. Again, test it, and I'm a very big data guy. Like, I want to test stuff, but I want it all to be measured. So I think that's it. Thanks a lot, guys.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this content, make sure that you like and subscribe to get more of the content that you want to see about growing your fitness business. You can click any of the videos here to see other episodes, but I want to hear from you, so drop some comments into other content that you would like to see.